Hello and welcome to another episode in season two of my podcast, 10,000 Hours and Counting. This opportunity of me from my heart just to share some wisdom and talk to friends that I know and talk to other light bearers and light workers around the globe to share some light for everyone who is open to receive. So today is a beautiful experience for me. It's my first time with a guest who is not one of my friends, but is another light worker that I have connected with. So it's a really lovely beginning here. And her name is Bahia. And so she's across the globe. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and she's in Nova Scotia. So Bahia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Laura, for having me. I feel really grateful. I just want to acknowledge our common and shared friend, Suzanne, who brought us together in this space. So I feel, there's always 6 degrees of separation. Like one person that we connect with, there's always like a common thread. So uh, just acknowledging Suzanne and bringing her into the space is so lovely.
And her light as a bridge. I said to her, there's another episode with Suzanne herself. You'll all hear that at some point. But it is a beautiful way to connect with like-minded others. And those kinds of things happen, just out of the blue or off the cuff. And yet the soul resonance is so strong that you don't need much more than an introduction and just an opening. And this is what I find beautiful about working with people who are connected to their soul and in that level of awareness, that it's an instant feeling of resonance and beauty, really. So yes, thank you to Suzanne
Yeah,
and thank you to you as well.
thank you.
So we were just today, I've just been saying that this season is a lot more just sort of just slightly opening up more in the moment to what's happening. I was getting themes last year, but I think that it's really nice to be in space with another person and their voice and to weave something. It's not an interview show, it's a discussion and a chat from our hearts.
Mm.
So what I would like to talk about though with you, and I know that you'll have a lot to bring here, is this energy that is affecting everyone on Earth, the feeling of fatigue, of physical fatigue, and there is also some emotional fatigue there as well. And I know that absolutely everybody is experiencing that, whether they meditate or they think about crystals or not. And I know that there's so many people talking about it, but I would like to talk about it today in a way of reframing it with some positivity of perhaps spiritual reasons for why that's happening, so that people can take off their heavy human thinking mind about it and maybe
Mm.
make it be a problem and lean into it and sort of be part of the process of what this fatigue means for us here on planet Earth at this time.
Yeah. Uh, well, I know for myself, I can share there. I feel like there's several things that can contribute to fatigue. But I just, for a moment, if we want to imagine carrying, a heavy burden for a long time, like you just imagine like moving forward and always feeling as though we've got to be in this yang energy of achievement and go, 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 despite our fatigue. Like I know for myself, I've always been in that place where even though I was tired, I still found energy within myself to eat, to still go and get something done. And what I'm finding, it for me, it started to happen around Christmas last year. So towards the end of December, I started to feel a heaviness and a density in my body that I hadn't felt for a long time. And my birthday's in November, and every November I do a solar return spread for myself. So I pull some oracle cards and I channel in kind of like a message from my higher self so that I have a theme for every solar year that I go through so that I'm not just aimlessly kind of going through my year. I have a point of focus, I have an intention and some sort of medicine that I'm working through. And so in November, when I was setting up my solar return, there was a lot of messages, and what was coming through was stillness, mindfulness, slowing down, going within. And I'm like, ooh, this is a new energy for me. I have so much fire energy in me. And the message that came through was like, you've got to slow down, you've got to bring in, invite more rest and silence, stillness.
Mm.
And I started doing deprivation meditations in my closet, which I can talk about later, but I'm weaving this back into the fatigue question. So in that space, like the energy already started coming for me. And I was like, oh, but I was feeling so good. I was waking up with energy. I was like, how could I, you know, feel fatigue? Like I hadn't felt it, in a while. And then December came and it was like something just landed on my body. And it felt difficult to get up in the morning, and
Mhm.
that's not common for me. And I was going to bed earlier and sleeping longer. So
Mm, mm.
there would be like some nights where I was like out heavy, deep for 10 hours. And I'd wake up and I was like, what's happening? And so what I'm what I'm feeling guided, like when I look into that, I can feel like we've been carrying this heavy burden. And this is the year we're in a year 9, which
Mm.
is the year completion, if we take 2025 and we deduce it down. And this is the year I feel like we put it down. So when we
Yeah.
put that burden down, it's like there's this accumulation of fatigue that we've been holding that's now just kind of surfacing. And I feel like that pause and that slowdown is an invitation because we're going through a rapid transformation, like in our DNA.
Mm.
And there's my dog, Caleb. I don't know if you can hear him, but he's going to pop in and bark every now and again if someone's coming to the door. Yeah. So in that fatigue, uh, I feel as though we're being asked to kind of slow down. There's a lot of shedding, there's a lot of letting go. And, we kind of spoke previous about the yin energy and that serpent energy of this year, and how, when we've been moving and going for so long, and then that slow down energy comes in, you feel the accumulation of the fatigue that's just kind of been sitting there. I don't know. How does that feel for you?
Absolutely. And as you say, it's the transformation is the key for me because I agree with you. And I thank you for sharing that you tune in for a theme for your solar return, just to lightly, direct the journey as I do and as a lot of people do, I think. And for me, it was about the word was transform. But I felt it in a sense of small clicks. It wasn't about necessarily, we are heading for a big transformation, but it didn't need to be dramatic. It was like transform that thought, transform that habit, transform even just my daily sort of routine, even the spiritual routine. Like there were these little small energies of just keeping the flames of transformation. But it was like being asked to do it in a way that it's a daily thing. It's a daily occurrence of surrendering to this energy and knowing that each little step is important because I think that we have been conditioned being human beings, as you say, and or you may have said it before we started recording, but in this society to keep pushing ourselves, and that's an old sort of outmoded patriarchal thing of push, push, push and end up with depletion, but it doesn't seem to have an answer. It's just continue to push. And so, even for those of us who don't live that way, living on the earth with the frequency of that, it is still sort of a part of our world in ways. And I believe that some of the resistance to allowing this softening down and this slowing down it can be attributed to those sort of waves of grief that humanity has experienced on Earth, that Earth herself will be holding as she's releasing them. It's kind of coming up from her through all of our bodies. So I feel like our bodies are processing the grief, and not just of our lives or our ancestors, of humanity on Earth to this point. And I always say to people, I want you to understand how important these feelings are, where at the moment you're feeling blocked, or like you said, it's not your normal feeling. It's like we're being asked to all sort of collectively stand and hold this frequency for Earth and for all of us. And so it's big work that's being done. We need to be very loving to ourselves and gentle with it, but it's a bit like the way the moon affects the tides. No one on earth can escape these energies at this time, and it's important that we are all experiencing them in those ways. So
Mm,
I just want people to understand it's not a logical reason, it's not to do with your age. I will talk a little bit, I want to go back to your deprivation meditation. And I'd like to also bring in talking about the transformation of the human body from the carbon-based structures that we've had for so long into the
mhm.
crystalline being structure. That's
Yeah.
another part, another reason of why we are tired, because there is literally cellular transformation happening. And in order
Mm,
for growth, you think about the gestation with a pregnancy, it does take time for these transformations to occur. It doesn't just happen, bang. So that's part of that. Our bodies are changing, our DNA is shifting and changing, and this is all for a beautiful reason. It's about opening up to these higher frequency vibrations that Earth is emanating so we can all be here together with a
Yeah.
higher frequency, stepping out of one, as you said, old energy and into the new.
I love that. Laura, you're speaking my language. I love it. It's like I've received that information way back in like 2013 when I first awakened. And I
Mhm.
was like, when is it coming? I'm ready. It's like there was like this instant knowing of something, but then just watching in linear time as humans are still, and it was almost like I was waiting for this big moment, but it's happening in every now moment, the big moment. Every time people say, oh, the big awakening's here, well, it's been here. We're just allowing our bodies to go through what I call it like a simultaneous death and birth. I don't like to use the word rebirth, and I want to share why, because I believe the word re, and I feel like when we use words, we cast spells, right? So
Yeah,
when I use the word re for me means to do again. So
yeah.
if I say rebirth, that means I'll be doing it the same cycle again.
Mm.
So when I use the word, instead of using rebirth, I say born anew, because
Mm.
we are becoming new beings. As you had shared, the carbon based energy. I When I was doing my shamanic studies in Vancouver back in 2017, um, I was taking the Andean shamanism that talks about becoming homo luminous,
Yes.
like glowing from the inside out. And there's this big awareness that's really integrating inside of me. And it's like, really what's happening now is that energy has always been here, but our bodies have not been acclimated to be able to connect to that resonance. It's just like, if you're in an older home and there's an electrical box, right? It can't run all of the plugs. So you have to upgrade the electrical system. And once you do, you won't be short circuiting when you plug things in anymore. And we're hydroelectric inside. We have our nervous system and we're made up of over 70% water. So, in order for us to be able to hold our divinity in our physical vessels here on Earth, raised her frequency. I believe back in 2013,
Yes.
with the changing of the energy, and she's given us a grace period for our bodies to catch up to her frequency. And as we're catching up to that, I agree with you 100%, Laura, of how our bodies are being used as to the transformers of the density held in Earth herself. Um, because in order for us to kind of, how I like to see it, bring heaven on earth, to
Mhm.
live as divine beings, to share the highest expression of light here, we first have to transmute the dark. You know, we have to work through that heavier, dense energy and bring light to it and neutralize it in our heart spaces. But
Absolutely.
we haven't been given a manual for that. So it's just like when people grow a baby, there's no manual for it. You just, all of a sudden, you've got a baby and you've got to know how to mother. That's the same thing. We're being given this task of transforming ourselves into a whole new species
Mm.
with no manual.
That's the crux. It's a whole new species. It's we know that karma is going to be leaving Earth with the souls who are coming in. And in fact, I do believe some, and actually this is through Suzanne was sharing a book with me too about the Christ Light Child or something from 2007. Certain souls have been coming through. And I do believe karma will be leaving so that we are transmuting it for those of us who are there here. And souls will come through later without that. So I want to go back to that for one moment too. You think about the connections in your body, the DNA, and they say that you can have about 14 strands of like different, like ancestral energy DNA within you now, active and moving through. And that is why if you watch those programs about ancestry and people cry a little bit when they read about someone, in that moment, what you say that you bring awareness to the pain it can shift it. We cannot heal what we don't feel. And that's a very old
Yeah.
spiritual saying, but it's absolutely true. When you start to heal, of course, like sometimes the boogeymen and stuff all come out, and it seems like it's going to be a never-ending like show of just looking at your own horrors, or in the case sometimes in the world, looking at horrors. But I do have that perspective of if you don't see it and see the truth, if everything is like covered over and white papered over, you're going to be operating with a very like a not nice sort of feeling. There'll be something in the background, a sense of things aren't really right. I say to my friend, I think truth is oxygen to me. I would like to know the truth. And I feel that truth
Hmm.
also does, once again, it sounds like a cliche, but it sets us free in order to start moving forward. So I do love that idea of the body being a transmitter for Earth. And I feel like if you think about how much humans love crystals and we're becoming more crystalline, I feel that the crystal kingdom have really been supporting us. They're in everyone's home, even people who are just maybe doing it, they just like the prettiness or, at a certain level, even if they're not working with them. Crystals are everywhere. And I feel like it's helping our bodies, the more we're around crystals for whatever reason, to pick up that resonance as they change and kind of be like a softening into this change because it's big, as you say, about 2013, it's a long period. And yet it is happening. Well, I think I've had moments where it feels like it's stronger and I'm more of a, as people would know, crystals can conduct energy. They can hold it, to transmute it. Sometimes I feel more crystalline than at other times, and I believe that's part of the integration. So yeah, I think if we can look for the positive in this process, as you're saying, at the end, you're birthed to be a child. So at the end, we're birthing the new human. We're alchemizing the heaviness of humanity at this point through us, through Earth, into
Mm.
something else. And then future generations will have won't have the same things we had to deal with. But if you're here now on Earth, it's a big deal. And thank you. And Earth thanks you. And you asked to be here for this incredible opportunity to like be in part of history, really.
But yeah, being part of history, Laura, but also too, like we, this is how I'd like to reframe it for people to really connect into what they signed up for at a soul level. We are most likely like that last group or that last generation that is going to experience contrast.
Mm,
So, contrast in the sense of we are infinite beings, right? So, outside of this avatar, we are unconditional love.
mm,
We are just this infinite divine essence that doesn't understand or know limitation,
mm,
doesn't understand or know pain. So when we elected to, you know, come into this human experience, we came in with the knowing that we would be coming in forgetting,
mm,
and the journey was going to be remembering. And it's in those moments when you have that, like, I remember my moment of awakening when something just clicked inside of me. And then there was this rush and wave of love that I had never felt before. And it brought me to tears. And I knew that that was my essence connecting with me. The
mm,
only thing is I couldn't hold the frequency,
mhm,
right? So this, but I knew that it cracked me open and gave me the new benchmark, and then I knew that, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend the rest of my life attuning to this experience, and it became joyful for me. Like every morning when I've my cat here's playing with my earbuds. Every morning when I wake up, I feel like it's like Christmas Day. So I'm waking up and I'm going, ooh, who am I going to meet today? Who am I going to talk to? What is life going to show me about myself? How am I going to experience life, in all of its paradox, of
Yeah.
the joy, the pain, the limitation, moving into liberation, like all of that is the experience. But our egos, I find like our mental bodies, um, because they're so easily conditioned and programmed, we've lived in a society where we've been so heavily judged. We live in a very toxic culture where our our worth is defined by our beauty or our social status. So people can't, it's so hard, they forget just how magnificent and unique they are because they're chasing this ideal that
Mm.
they kind of lost the whole point. So you talked earlier about that superficiality and how we kind of just tuck things away. And I love what you said about the truth. And for me, the word is transparency. So it's like
Mm.
I'm moving into this place of transparency. So sometimes people are very protective of their information or they don't want to share. And I'm just like, I've got nothing to hide. Like, I'll share my information over here because I want to be homo luminous. Like, I want to be transparent. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm sovereign in my own being, and I know that if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you my truth,
Mm.
then there's nothing for me to hide. I don't have to use mental energy to come up with something or think about something. I'm just transmitting in the now moment. That's liberation.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so powerful that you say that. And I love the fact that we're talking about this of aligning with that frequency. You know, as you say, it's always there. And whenever I tune into my heart or a divine being, it's always a feeling of Earth herself. It always feels like an energy of positivity, rightness, and calmness, I would have to say, no matter what is going on. And it means being a human with your personality, so the emotion. Sometimes you can't always be in that state, but that is because of the way we were set up for this, if you want to say like the project, the heaven on earth project. So be kind to yourself when you're not always in the frequency. But the truth is, it's always within you. You just sometimes what you said, you can't just feel it, and it's okay. And I say to people, at least just be honest with yourself and say, I can't feel it, or I feel disconnected. And sometimes if you make those statements to yourself or you name it, it will save you a lot of bother or trouble of running around and blaming it on the long hours your boss got you to work. Or even spiritual people will do this sometimes. They will blame it on something that's much more material world. Maybe they're worried if they think that it's a spiritual issue, it's got no solution. I don't know. But it's about I think I agree with you. There's a beauty and almost a joy of the experience of you coming in and out and what am I feeling today? And then I see
Mhm.
challenges as like the sandpaper for the soul, so you use it to refine, you face it, and it does not feel good when you're in it, but it feels like it's something meaningful to do, to be in a situation that A, you might not have an answer for, and B, feels uncomfortable and maybe a bit scary, but to commit to the process, because if it's showed up in your life, I do believe there'll be a reason for it. And it feels a little bit like being on the hero's journey and saying, I don't know why, I don't know how this is going to be solved, but I'm showing up for the journey. And I know that each day will be different. It won't always be the same level of heaviness. It won't always be the same bliss, but I commit to the path and what is in front of me. There's something about that committing to the soul's journey that will free you from so much heaviness.
Agreed. Agreed. And life is always mirroring back to us, Laura, that energy. Like if you look at the metaphors of the lotus, no mud, no lotus. Look at the metaphor of a pearl. You know, a pearl is formed in an oyster with sand and grit. It's refined until it becomes this beautiful, smooth, beautiful piece of opulence. And then we have the diamond. Diamonds are made by being with carbon being crushed. So life is showing us, what's happening to us because the inner world is always being reflected in the outer world.
Mm.
We just when we connect in through our hearts, we'll be able to see the contrast at the same time. Like when I teach, I always share, the mind is a polarity organ. So the
Mhm.
mind is always going to play tennis with something and it's going to be like right, wrong, good, bad. And it will never, it doesn't have the possibility of seeing two things simultaneously, but the
No.
heart does. So the heart has resonance and the heart is connected into the electromagnetic grid. So in that space, when you're feeling through your heart, when you're connecting in, when you're being heart centered, leading with the heart, when you're in brain heart coherence,
Mm.
then you have the ability to see both sides of a situation simultaneously. And that's how you can see the contrast playing out in your life. And this is happening for me more and more as I transform myself, in previous versions of myself. And I always like to say, like, we're multidimensional. So let's not forget about the parts of us that were held in a denser energy because they were equally as beautiful.
Yeah.
They were they were doing the best they could with what they knew and what they had. So when you cycle back into a lower vibration of yourself, for me, it's like a remembering of who I was. And it's just another feeling of contrast. It's like, whoa, I used to live like this every day. Oh my gosh, how are you doing? Like, why are you back here? What are we refining? You know? And then once I, get through another layer, because I always see the hero's journey as a spiral
Yeah.
upwards, right? So it's not a circle, it's a spiral, and it keeps pulling us up. And as we do that, we're going to circle back through certain experiences in our lives because we're refining them, and we've got to see them from a different angle of perspective because we're multifaceted. And every time we do that and we become less reactive, then we draw in more light. And as we draw in more light, it builds that muscle inside of us to be able to um, hold the energy of both light and dark simultaneously.
Yes. That's right. We're not trying to remove the dark. There's no such thing. It's that balance and harmonizing. And yes, I love what you say. That's right, the spiral path. And sometimes it seems like you've taken a step backward, but it reminds me of sort of the growth and contraction of nature, the way the plant or the flower, it starts to bloom, but there's also pulling back. So when
Mm-hmm.
you think, oh, I'm in this situation again, I guarantee you, if you look at it, you will have acted differently or thought about it differently. And it's a little bit like the universe, as you say, showing you. But we get so into the linear thing with humans of I want to always be pushing forward, and it doesn't actually help us. So if we can just gentle in and accept what is happening and see any of those things not as setbacks, but as opportunities for growth, I think
Yeah,
that will really take a lot of also the hardship or the difficulty of feeling so tired because we wear ourselves out emotionally too. And when all these energies are flying around the planet and you still want to be using your old mind to force yourself into a position or blame yourself for not getting there quicker, all of these old things, I do believe it will sort of escalate the tiredness at this time because Earth is kind of showing us as though it's like watching sort of like there's kids' toys like a sticky hand thing, and you can fling it at something and it starts to stretch. So it's like old energies. Earth is moving, and she is emanating this energy, and that stuff, that muck, kind of can't stick, but it is coming up. So it's an opportunity. You're being asked to step into a higher thinking, a higher vision, and I love what you said about that with
yeah,
those opportunities. So I think that if we just for a moment to go back to the fatigue, I want to, get people to embrace it almost, and understand that it's not a punishment or an error. It's not something you're doing wrong. It's not like an end of days situation. It's transformative. And so be your own experiment. Like we can talk about what we do, but I would also just say for yourself, understand it and give yourself time to step out, maybe take a 5 minutes longer for your cup of tea or something, giving yourself like the loving care that a loving parent would give to maybe a child who had been unwell. Like, we're not saying we're unwell, but we need to understand we really need deep nurturing at this point from ourselves in order to
yeah.
bridge the gap to the next level. And if we keep pushing ourselves, we're just going to make it a sort of a longer journey. So it's like take the time out and say to yourself, okay, you need that time and give it because no one will give it to you if you don't. And love yourself enough to say, this is not me failing, this is me transforming. And so I support myself in whichever way I can.
Yeah, it's like there's another analogy that's coming through for this. And what I'm seeing is like previous generations, like if we look back to our ancestral lines, they were running in survival mode, fight or flight. Like I look back, um, even at my own parents and my grandparents. And so being born into an energy where people are just all they know is how to work and provide and keep going.
Mm.
And, you know, as we're stepping into like a new frequency and we're being upgraded. So I always use the analogy like imagine switching from, the old flip phones into a smartphone
Yep.
or moving from cable into I don't know if you have fiber op in Australia, but we have like the fiber optic cables. So there's a huge upgrade that's taking place. And even when our phones update, they need to shut down and they spiral. You can't use them.
Yeah.
So I always share with people like you're being upgraded.
Yeah.
And so in that process, we need to honor the that that process that's saying you got to stop and you've got to wait because there's programs being downloaded.
Mm.
There's there's so much that's happening in the background. Um, and as we learn to invite in divine relaxation,
Mm.
that's what's going to birth the new human,
Mm.
because we're not meant to be in fight or flight. Like, as our nervous systems regulate, as we regulate, it's in those moments of stillness where divinity comes in. That's
Yes.
where the breakthrough comes in, the aha moments. Your brain waves start to move from beta into alpha, which is our daydream state, and then theta, which is like our programmable state. And then
Mhm.
if you can relax deep enough, you might have like a 15-minute nap where you don't even know where you went and your brain is in delta and now you're in deep DNA repair. So I say let's invite in rest and relaxation as the experiment and see how it changes your life. Because for me, before, I used to carry shame when I
Mhm.
was tired, and I would like take a rest in the afternoon because that my
Mhm.
parents worked 80 hours a week. So
Yeah.
I felt guilty. So I had to work through the guilt and the shame of not working as hard as my parents and actually moving about the world in a way that I felt was more efficient and smarter. And I could do more with less, because that's the new energy. Like, now that I invite in more periods of rest, I actually do less, but I have more. It's counterintuitive, but that's the new energy. That's what it wants us to. It wants us to catch that wave. But in
Mm.
order for us to do that, we've got to put down that masculine yang, doing, and soften into that just being.
Yes. That is so beautiful. And I wanted to cycle back to something you had said before. I'm just trying to fill into that thread. No, I just want to let that rest for a minute. I think that
Okay.
it's spiritual evolution is what we're in, and so it is about reforming and letting rest be the new way to create almost, because people
Mhm.
know what it's like when they've done a million things and they feel they've pushed all their energy, but at the end of the day, maybe they haven't really achieved anything. And so it is about learning the cycles of your own timing and understanding what works best for you. That's right. And releasing any, just having an awareness of what you said before is, why am I feeling this way? So a little bit of self-reflection. Is it something I was, programmed by, or was it something that happened in my past? Because humans, it can be difficult for you to believe things are going to be different when you've had something be the same for so long. You talked about that heaviness that we're carrying. And so, from a spiritual perspective, energy can shift at a moment's notice and something can be completely different. But we are always thinking, oh, it's been this way for so long, or I'm feeling this feeling. We assume, and then we fill in the blanks of that story for ourselves. This is how it's going to be forever. And yet, if we could be in an experimentation of, no, I'm new now, things aren't quite the same, and what does that mean for me? There will be an essence of you trusting in the fatigue. People are happy to work with their bodies in order to complete a triathlon or some kind of physical test. They're happy to accept the discomfort at some time, or to make sure they get their protein in at this time, and they have all sort of structure around it and they make certain sacrifices towards it. But people don't seem to want to do that on that spiritual level. As I say, if you can see that the fatigue is the divine helping you and assisting you out of old programs, maybe that will give you more of a way of being able to accept it and not try to label it, but just be in it and see it as, it's not quite the end game yet, but you're preparing your whole being for a new way.
Yeah, preparing for a new way, and that in and of itself, I can feel certain people listening in feeling a bit of fear around
Mm.
that,
Mm.
because that requires stepping into the unknown. And that could be like a whole other conversation and show, but um, that's what prevents people from changing. One of the things, right? So we will almost like pull ourselves back or freeze ourselves.
Mm.
I've been working with quite a few people lately who have been in functional freeze.
Mm.
So functional freeze, they're still getting through their daily tasks, but there's no bandwidth for joy or pleasure or life.
Yeah.
It's just got to get through the day. And as
Yeah.
soon as they get through the day, as soon as they have a moment to rest, they're not integrating or feeling into themselves. They're distracting, they're numbing
Mm.
on reels or watching Netflix or eating or, doing something else other than being with the self, because we haven't been taught how to be with ourselves,
Mm.
how to sit with our big emotions. Like I love my partner. We're in a blended family. And we could talk attachment styles, but he is an avoidant and I'm an anxious. So I can see where for him he loves distraction. Like he cannot sit still. He's got to be doing or moving, because if he actually stops, there's a feeling of anxiety or discomfort that he doesn't like and he doesn't know what to do with it.
And that's about learning your type too. Thank you for bringing that up, because so for him, it's a bit like people say, I can't meditate. And I suggest to them, well, do you think I mean just sit cross-legged and breathe? Because an active meditation can be conscious, a bike ride or walking in nature, but just where you're just focused on the task at hand. And
Yeah.
so it's really important that we give ourselves, because everybody's rest is going to look different to everyone else's. But you've got to know for you what is going to light you up, and don't try to force someone else's idea on you. But it's just like as though you were trying a new method, just experiment and say, well, what can I do? Just find a way that works for you. And you can start, when I do start these kinds of experiments on myself, you don't have to stay with it if it doesn't work, but you need to step outside of the box. I always say to people, nature. I mean, most people, when they get in nature, even if it's a hike, there's some heart expansion, some understanding of the sky. It's like, oh, I'm out here now, and that office world or whatever it is just receded, and I'm somehow in connection with just like a more of a peacefulness, and all of that busy, busy, busy can drop away. So I would say one thing to start with would be even just go outside and look at the sky, like connect back to nature in a way that feels right for you. As I say, if it's a bike ride or anything, but where you're actually in the natural world and you're letting your like wild inner human part out, and not the sort of the one that might be in a box in certain ways with all its facets. It's just you in the moment. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the movement is so important right now. Like there were days where I was so tired, like feeling so heavy.
Mhm.
And even though I felt that way, I made a commitment to myself to walk every day so that I
Mhm.
can move my lymphatic system. And I know that it's a great way for my body to move through emotions.
Mm.
Um, and I put my earbuds in and I still went out. And once I started walking, I started yawning and yawning. And yawning is one of the ways that I transmute energy. And
Mm.
as I started yawning, I could start to feel like fatigue lifting. And when I actually came back from the walk, I felt more energized.
Mhm.
So, like being like having that exposure to the fresh air, um, allowing myself to kind of be with that heaviness, and the yawning I know helped tremendously, but it almost felt like a layer of something had lifted.
Mm. And not fighting it, what you've said. So you knew to go for the walk and you allow it to happen, but it's just like how far you need to go. I do feel a lot of people are fighting the tiredness, the fatigue, and I understand it, but I would just encourage you to embrace it a bit more. Again, see it as a helpful tool of getting to a new destination. You're not going to get through the gate. You're not going to get the hand stamp, until you can be more in this open space. It's a bit of like allowing yourself to be broken down so that you can be formed anew. And I love that you said that about the rebirth birth. It is about, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beyond, we're at a time where we're really, it hasn't happened before. So we say unprecedented, and it's kind of got the all potentiality there. So we want to really be in that porous state of continuing to shift, even maybe our higher spiritual vision of what we think, to allow what's really coming in to land. And when we were saying, we are beings of light as well, that's where the being a being of light, being a soul and a heart, yes, the heart and your soul can accept shifts and swift change very instantly, and can hold space for, that's right, the duality in a way that the mind can't. And so it won't attach to any one thing. It will just be until it's no longer that. And then it's this, and then
Hmm.
it's that. And there's something about that immediacy which we have to let our bodies help us with, which the mind will be in a shallow way immediate. And as you say, can flip and switch and argue any point, but the body will
Yep.
be able to accept, now this feeling is here and now, and strangely, I no longer feel that anymore. So it's just being in that process of what you need, as you say, the movement. And I just think that willingness to to open up, I think, to all potentiality and not to try and claim it, name it, box it again, because we want to leave those boxes of humanity behind. We don't want to be putting new humans into boxes. And it's a safety mechanism for some of us. Personally, labels give me the heebie-jeebies, but we want to just keep being open and aware of, as I say, it's a transition that we're in. It's definitely a transition. It's not the end of the story.
Yeah. And, I find what would really be helpful for people, working through this is to have safe places that they can actually talk and share and come together in this. At this time, a long, long time ago, we used to be communal beings. So we lived in we lived in villages, and we helped raise each other's children, and we cooked together, we gathered together, we worked together. And then our modern day has us all isolated and separated in our homes, but our bodies actually need the connection. It's so important because it's like when I first connected with you, I could feel the light just weaving back and forth. And in our connection, I felt so much levity and so much lightness, and I felt so much more expanded after. And um, when we can allow different aspects of ourselves to kind of come out in those safe places and to be able to share and express, that's that exercise. Now, you had talked before about that kind of expansion and then contraction, right? That's kind of like what we're doing. It's like we expand in these spaces, and then we're like, ooh, got to come back in a little bit, and then we come back out and expand and contract, expand, and then before you know it, we're sitting in a new normal, right?
Mm,
And now we're this expanded being that can hold more of our soul essence
mm,
because we've created the space for it. But the only way to create the space is we've got to let go of the past.
yeah.
And how do we let go of the past? We've got to feel it,
Yeah.
feel it without attachment. And if, we were trained in our culture and society to be mental body dominant, to be mentally focused, that's a great way to keep people in fear and control
Yes.
them, right? Because the mind, the ego, is so like sensitive and easily attaches. But if we were raised to be heart-centered beings, we'd be in our sovereignty, we'd have our own agency, and
Mm,
then we could not be controlled. So we've got to look at the game too that we've kind of been placed in. And once you can have that awareness and go, whoa, it's actually to my advantage to be heart centered. And so it kind of gives that little bit of encouragement to step into the unknown, to know that there is this opening to, a liberation that you can't quite put into words. Like when I say that I feel free inside, it's an essence, and it's just a knowing, because I've transcended a lot of my mental limitations, like the my own kind of old beliefs and things that I thought about myself, which kept me so small and limited.
mm,
So, like you had said before, like transform a thought, or transform, when we can allow ourselves that deeper transformation, the freedom starts inside of us, not outside of us.
mm. It's that frequency. It's about allowing that frequency to shift. And so those small shifts all of the time will build up to something big. And I just think if people want to focus on the bigger things, but it's like at the moment, the best you can do is focus on the small in those senses of the small wins, the small movements, the simplicity. When you were saying about connecting with, me connecting with your energy and you connecting with me, when people also, you have people like a love connection in a family, like those are wins of when you feel that lift you up and fill you up. And the more that
Mm-hmm.
we work on this journey of awareness, and that's right, like opening to spirit, because we want to allow more spiritual energy into the body. And of course, spiritual energy is electrical in some ways. And so there has been at the past like a difficulty of getting it into the body. So, but more and more, I am noticing that with people, the energy is different. And it's almost like bodies are so porous that they can receive more. And then sometimes the body has to integrate. But my feeling is we ask for as much as we can handle, and we never get more than we can handle as spiritual light. We digest it as we need. So it's really about, yeah, I think it's about allowing what's happening for you, but also with the view of not shutting it off and calling it something and just labeling it fatigue and saying, oh, well, that's the way it is, you know. So I'd like to also talk to you, just keep the deprivation meditation keeps coming back to my mind. I'd like you
Mm.
to explain that a bit for people in a way that maybe your story for it, but to offer them this idea, because humans hate the idea of deprivation, how it could be a key to unlocking some freedom maybe for people at this time. Could you share a bit on that?
Yeah, I'm really excited to keep exploring this. You know, I have my own meditation practice. I work with sound, and so um, you know, that the ability for me to go and do a shamanic journey and release the DMT comes very easily for me. It doesn't take too much. And so when I did this solar return and that awareness came through, it was very clear. Like I could feel almost like a soul channeling. And I just wrote, go in your closet, start with 10 minutes, and every week add 10 more minutes until you get to 100 minutes. And it's in the closet, no light, so it's complete darkness. And then I put my noise canceling headphones, uh, and I have my little meditation cushion set up in my closet, and I have a little pillow for my back. And the intention is to sit still, and I haven't been able to I'm up to 80 minutes now, but I haven't been able to hold cross-legged for that amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to eventually, but I feel like my legs completely go asleep. So at some point I just kind of crack them open because I'm just like practice. But in that space, I've had some profound shifts. Going into that space in the beginning, I've been able, by just shutting out all of the world and not having any stimuli or anything to connect into, my body has a chance to go deeper into repressed or stored memories.
Mm.
And I'm not focusing or shifting or planning anything. I'm just going in there going, okay. So in the first 10 minutes, it was a very cosmic galactic meditation. Like for those who, you know, feel into that realm, I went up into, you know, very high cosmic energies and I received messages there, which I thought was cool. The second time that I went in, you know, I started to see my third eye opening more crystalline structures. And the last few times I've gone in, I've been going back like into my earlier memories from childhood, and I'm feeling deep pain that I have no idea is still in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I I cry in there, and I kind of hold myself. And when I'm crying, I can feel the tears coming down, and I never wipe them. I never stop the flow. I
Mm.
let them completely fall down my cheek and away. And I can feel all this energy shifting in my body. And every time I come out from the closet, I feel lighter and I
Mm.
feel softer.
Mm.
I've really been working with the yin energy lately, like just inviting in more flow, you know, less force, more flow, allowing myself to kind of really be able to respond to life and move with it versus always reacting,
Mm.
you know, so switching out of that reactivity model. And I'm just finding the deprivation meditations are giving me time and space to go into places that I wouldn't normally access in my day to day.
Mm.
And it's been very profound for me. And I'm really excited that I'm up to 80 minutes. And I can tell you, it doesn't feel like 80 minutes
Yeah.
because so much is happening. Like I'm back in childhood and I'm feeling this and I'm seeing all these pieces interconnecting. It's like my higher self is like, okay, she's in there. Bring in the messages, give her what she needs in that moment. And it's been very integrative for me.
Mm. And
Yeah.
these are the opportunities we want to take. We want to help free our bodies of those old emotions and the old patterns. That's what it's about. And so it is about that gentleness and the willingness to face it. As you say, you're not programming, you just show up and then whatever occurs. And I do feel that if you were to sit quietly in reflection, or even in your day, sometimes a memory might come to you of something that happened before. And some people might want to push it away, but I feel like that's your little sort of leader cue to take of thinking, oh, okay, so that's some memory of just out of the blue. Why would my brain bring that up? It's like the heart has brought it up, and you can just either sit with it or think about the memory. Like I talked about earlier, sometimes putting an awareness on something gives it freedom of actually just allowing it to be thought and felt and allowing our bodies. I mean, could we just take a moment to, feel into the beauty of the body and all the body does of carrying us in the world and think about
Yeah.
how amazing it is we've got an opportunity in times past, people, as you said, fight or flight, and the body, they didn't really have these opportunities to free their bodies from this karmic heaviness. So Earth is in a flux. It's flux sounds more open than I want to say, but Earth is so open with her energy now. Our bodies are open. I'm noticing stuff like in my joints, and I feel the crystalline stuff coming online more. So I would just encourage anyone to think about the past pain that might be coming up and letting their body be free and not about forcing the body. If your idea of moving the body, it might even be lying in corpse pose. There's something about intention of movement of what the body needs, and it will tell you. And I just think it's beautiful to think that we're in this sacred sort of relationship of helping it to become something new. And we have to be
Yeah.
willing to be present to what it needs instead of trying to tell it what it needs, because
Exactly.
that doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's also in recognizing that the body has its own consciousness. Like a lot of people don't know that the body has um, its own brain.
Hmm.
It's different from the brain that you communicate to up here. You can have a mental thought. We take something from the field and we're like, oh, I'm I'm gonna I'm going to go to that new store and I'm going to talk to that new person. And then as soon as you get there, the body shuts down and freezes and your vocal cords freeze.
Yep.
So you think you might want to do that. But if the body has a past memory, so
Mhm.
like throughout childhood, in the womb and beyond, we talk past lives, right? We have through our Akash. We have all of these stored memories, and all of those memories get stored in the amygdala. And so our body is constantly scanning its environment for threats.
Mhm.
And if it has a trauma that's been repressed, that hasn't been felt or moved or expressed, then it's going to shut down or move into fight or flight. Like for some people, their phones, when it gets a notification, can put them in fight or flight
Yeah.
because their body is like, there's no bandwidth. So I turn all of my notifications off on my phone. And when I want to, I go into my phone and then I check my messages. So I don't allow my phone to be that constant binging source in my field. I decide when I'm going to sit and I have the bandwidth to actually reply to somebody. So everyone knows in my friend group and circles that sometimes it might take me a day or two before I reply back to a message. And it's not because I don't care, but it's in allowing myself to be in an open hearted space that I can not just in this constant state of gotta get this done, gotta get this done, but more of a okay, my heart is open. I feel like I can receive the messages coming through and I'm in a space to be able to give.
Yes, I'm the same. You do have to take charge of the technology. It's a wonderful gift, but you don't want to let it run you ragged. And what you
No.
were saying about the body too there, and it's I also think sometimes the body will protect you. You think about that basic thing of gut instinct of someone says, I just felt like that person, it wasn't right. And so sometimes it's not even the body freezing from a painful memory, it's trying to circumvent your mind and it's saying to you, that is not for you. And that might seem beautiful and shiny to your mind, but it's about the energy or the experience that you need. And if we would learn to trust instead of pushing through, I think you'll find that things will open up in ways instead of pushing through with that situation. Let the body guide you and step back. And other times, the body can be the most incredible ally when you're in a challenging situation of feeling yourself as you are there instead of being up here about it, being present in the body to what's happening is kind of that buffer is the way to get through it instead of being, I want to say fractured or even brittle in the mind. The body has that resiliency and flexibility to weather storms and to come out of the other side. So we just make that shift, into body wisdom. And as you say, it's got its own system and it's got its own intelligence. And it's a little bit when you're out and you see someone in their jogging or running gear and they're running full pelt and they've got a dog on a lead with them. And sometimes I look at the dog and I think the dog is
Uh,
thinking, I don't think you need to do this. Like it's happy to go with the human, but it would be more willing to sort of drop back into a loping pace. And they will loyally go with their human, but maybe they have some wisdom the human could heed instead of that forward
mm.
movement. So it's a bit like it's like a loyal being that can't connect, can't communicate with you in a way you might fully understand, but is always emanating communications if you will listen.
Oh, yeah. Like the body is always talking and but she whispers. So you've got to
Mm,
learn to hear the whispers, you know? And I can, as someone who's walked through a lot of ailments and surgeries, and the most recent was the breast cancer in 2020, but I learned so much from my body and how powerful she is in being able to regenerate herself. And, um, you know, we have our own pharmacy inside of us. Our body knows how to balance the hormones and release the oxytocin and the serotonin and the dope, like all of these chemicals that we need to function. But it takes us to be in the right balance and harmony with all parts of us, you know, our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, and our spiritual health. Like
mm,
all of those flow together. Like I always call them the four pillars, they're the foundation. And if we are not consciously engaged with our emotions and our mental thoughts and beliefs and like the presence of our physical body and that expression of our higher selves, and if they're not constantly kind of dancing together, then one side is always overcompensating for the other, and then that's what leads to an imbalance, and then the body's like at some point it's got to get your attention. So
yeah.
we might have, like, there's so many people now with chronic inflammation. And what's inflammation? It's inflamed. It's anger, you know, it's that red energy. The body is just so angry. It's because we're not listening, we're not slowing down, we're not feeling, we're not allowing for the body wisdom. One of the things I also love doing is like intuitive movement.
Yes.
I just let go. And sometimes my left arm will start unwinding itself. And I might look really funny to the neighbor if they're looking in my window. But something natural and organic is moved, like an energy is untangling itself through my body. And
Mm,
I'm lovingly giving it the space to do that. And it can look foolish. That's why we don't do it.
yeah.
But look at, like, in nature, when a gazelle escapes the attack of the lion, the very first, here's Luna,
Luna
the
is
very first,
demonstrating a gazelle. If anyone's watching the she literally leapt like a gazelle. Thank you, beautiful Luna.
oh, um, you know, after the gazelle escapes, the first thing the gazelle does is
Thank
shakes.
you.
Yeah. And then they don't even care that they were just attacked. They gracefully just hop off because they moved it out of their nervous system in the now moment. So
Mm,
imagine if, you know, all of that accumulated stressful memory and energy that we haven't shaken off
mm,
has been repressed. But imagine if we started to let that slowly start to decompress. But from this moment on, you made a conscious decision and choice that when you felt hurt, that when you felt bothered, that when you felt an energy inside of you, you gave yourself permission to feel it. Like,
mm,
let the wave come up and fully come and then wash away versus going, that feels uncomfortable. I'm just going to go watch TV now. You know,
mm,
like, just imagine if we let that happen in this now moment. And I've started, like, in my relationships, like even just sharing things, like saying, "Oh, the way you said that just made me feel a little uncomfortable, or I'm
Yep.
not sure how I feel about that right now. I need to, whereas before I just either wouldn't say anything
Mhm.
or I'd fawn, I'd people please, I
Yeah.
would not want to upset the other person, but then I would self betray myself. So then there was that form of like self betrayal.
Mm. Mm.
So in those places, it's like just allowing ourselves to learn to be these feeling, moving beings where the body is just this magnificent miracle. And we are like looking
Yeah.
at it in a whole new way.
Yes. And giving yourself permission because the feelings will still be there to deal with another day. So looking at them in the moment and having the courage to not be frightened because quite often it won't be as terrible as you may think, but giving yourself the permission to be aware and say, I just need to, it's like a child might fall over, you said, and they'd be sobbing, and then the next minute they're totally fine. So let your emotions rush through, but with a spiritual wisdom, understand you're not going to necessarily be a great big hot mess and be unable to cope in the world. Spirit will help you. As I say, it's intelligent, it's kind and generous. It wants to help you through these pinnacles. It wants to make life flow for you. So you can also ask them for help. Like say, I'm feeling really emotionally raw. I want to process this. Can you please support me? But just at the moment on earth in this opportunity, just don't put your blinkers back on. I mean, it's kind of hard to go back anyway, but give yourself the gift of new territories and trusting that you're strong enough and your body will support you and your soul is supporting you, that you're strong enough to handle what's happening and not just handle it or cope with it, but use it as a transformative tool. So I'd like to cycle back to the fatigue where we started talking and just ask you, do you have a tip or something you would say to someone who's feeling the fatigue and resisting it or just concerned about how to navigate it or what you're doing? Because for me, I am really writing, listening to my body and taking time and totally off media and social media, whatever I need to do, feeling the grief. There's been days where I'm in grief that's not mine. I know that's coming from the collective and from Earth, but just giving myself the opportunity to be like that multidimensional being. You're one thing, you're also another at the same time. There's something about that flexibility. So I just want to leave everybody here with this talk about fatigue and these energies and ask if you would like to add something to support
Yeah.
people.
I love that we created a space for this because I know a lot of people are moving through this. And I feel like for me, it's learning that rest is okay. So really leaning into creating pauses in like when I'm transitioning from one task to another. So, I work part-time and then I have the energy work that I do and I also work with groups and so I pivot a lot throughout the day and then I also have a family. So then I've got to cook and do dishes and all the mundane things and chores and errands. And so it for me what I've learned is that I have to make sure that I fill my cup up first. So, what are things that are important to me? And then, right now, what's important to me is movement. So, I walk every day. So, I've made that commitment to myself to find the time to do that, even if the universe tries to take it away from me. Like I will arrange and shift and go, no, that's my walking time. So whether I have to do it early in the morning or in between things, I will make sure I get that in. Um, and I've been taking extra time to rest. So when I transition, I'll sit for 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe I'll have like a glass of water or a cup of tea and I'll just be present with my body. I'll check in and then I'll move to the next thing. So I'm building in pauses in
Mm.
between my tasks versus just got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Which it feels really good because as I've started building in the transitions, I've noticed that I'm more efficient and I get a lot more done. It's like really trippy, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And uh, I'm allowing, like, I've stopped putting on my alarm unless I have to be time specific. And I let
Yes.
my body naturally wake up. Um, and more times than not, it's on its own schedule, but sometimes it goes an extra 20 or 30 minutes.
Mm.
Like this morning, I could feel such a heaviness in my body and it felt really difficult to get up. So I was 30 minutes later getting into work than I
Mhm.
normally do. Uh, but because I gave myself that extra 30 minutes, I was way more productive and I
Yep.
got so much done in 3 hours versus forcing myself up and out and then getting there and feeling lethargic and heavy.
Mm.
I kind of just gave in to the, you know, give your body these extra 30 minutes. And it thanked me. Like it was just like, okay, you
Mm.
listened. Great. So then we got up. Um, yeah. And I'm just learning to offer myself more gentleness and compassion.
Mm.
So for me now, some nights I'm in bed by 8 p.m., like just laying horizontally. It doesn't mean that I'm sleeping, but because I love the stillness of the night. Like I'm someone who likes to stay up late and then, sleep in a little bit later in the morning. But and some people are early risers, but yeah, I've been learning to just allow myself to be horizontal earlier
Mm.
and just let the day it's like kind of like letting steam kind of come off the body. And
Yes.
maybe for other people that's a shower or a bath. Like I do a sauna and then cold shower.
Mm.
So that's another thing that I do. I just make sure that I find ways to honor and connect to all four parts: the physical self, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And I have a sense of humor, so I just make sure that I'm laughing and I'm making light of things because that levity also transmutes energy.
You absolutely need that lightness of being. The divine often comes with messages that have a bit of humor attached. And so thank you for sharing all of that and just your energy and your wisdom here. And I think it's just letting people know we can try and find a way to celebrate what's going through. Understand that fatigue is something that we need to experience. So help yourself to manage it. Don't try and force it away. But it's a little bit like we've all been offered this opportunity for this incredible training program or this mastery class, and so it's a really beautiful opportunity we're being offered. And give yourself the gift of receiving it and not trying to sort of get away from it or anything. It's new. We haven't been here before, but there's a reason for the fatigue. We're being shifted, we're being changed. We are becoming more crystalline. It's going to
Yeah.
be, it's part of this Heaven on Earth project, the new golden age. So we want to be present for this, but don't blame yourself, don't blame the body. Just accept, allow, as Bahia says, listen and be in communication with your body. It's a partnership. There's a reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The body hears us all the time. That's beautiful, Laura. I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is something that I do, and people could try this at home. But I put my hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I close my eyes. And as I breathe, I visualize like these beautiful ribbons of light with every inhale. So when I inhale in, I just visualize these beautiful ribbons of light coming into the body and moving in through and around, swirling through the organs, the tissue, the fascia, the blood, the bone. And then with every exhale, I just feel all the stagnation leaving the body. It could be old ribbons, like shattered ribbons, or could feel like smoke, or maybe it could feel heavy like rocks or muddy water. But I just allow through my breath like a cleansing of the body. So with every inhale, these beautiful ribbons of light, and they can be any color. And with every exhale, just letting go, letting go, letting go. And then in this space now, I start to feel a softening. I feel my belly, see if I can get my breath right down into my belly. And then we just allow the body to relax and to soften. And then in this space, this is where I talk to my body and I go, body, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for working so hard for me. You get up and you just move so automatically. I'm so proud of you. I love how you take care of me and you house my spirit. I love this partnership that we have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I say this now, like my body gets so excited to hear me say this. And, I encourage people to try this for themselves and see, like, Laura, would you like to talk to your body now and just share what you experience from it?
I think that's so important. I feel. That's so important, talking to the body. And as you were guiding that, my body did respond. It knows that when I give that attention or that gentleness of just wanting to touch your body with a nurturing sense, it just responds.
Yeah.
And it's like it takes up the partnership reins, and it says yes. It's that loyal dog waiting for you to understand it. And then I feel more capable of dealing with whatever I'm dealing with, because I am here and it is now, and the body is holding me and holding my spirit, and we're in consort or concert. It's so powerful. Try what Bahia has done, or style it for yourself, but connecting to your body. I ask my body if I've got an illness or a pain. I ask it, what is the message there? Or even just I feel into it, as you said, with colors. I don't try and just take a Panadol. I sit with it for a minute and I go, what is this? And I allow the body to speak to me. So I think
Hmm.
speaking to your body, giving it the space to speak back to you in its own language, its mysterious language, will really help you to make this transition. So support yourself and whatever it needs. And mine is just feeling that sense of absolute peace of being in a beautiful space with another soul, sharing the
Hmm.
light just from our hearts. And it feels like it's on point, it's on purpose. I feel a sense of excitement of where we're going in the world, even though that seems counterintuitive. My body and my soul feel like something beautiful is being born.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, just to bring it right back, like for people just to be in that reciprocity, just like that ebb and flow. It's a dance.
Mm,
We're here learning how to dance, and sometimes we've got two left feet and we're a little bit clumsy, but it's just like allowing ourselves to just be in a new rhythm, you
mm,
know, just slow it down, take the breaths, be intentional, be mindful, be curious, lean in, like there's just, for me, life is the miracle.
mm. And the best way to navigate uncertainty is to gently lean into it. As you say, I'm going to use the word with curiosity and an open
Yeah.
heart. And you will
And
feel
that's what
so much
children
better.
do. Children do it. Children do it until grown-ups tell them that it's wrong to do it. Until they've been conditioned to fear,
Mm,
children do not fear.
mm,
We just did things. We were so bold and courageous. And then it was when we did something and somebody got mad at us that we learned, whoa, can't do that. So the body remembers, and then it just starts to shrink and limit itself. But let's go back. Let's liberate the inner child. And my little girl, she's the one that's so excited about life right now. She's the one that courageously and boldly brings me into spaces where I get to connect with you, Laura, and just try something new, do something new, and go, why not? Like this is the great experience or the great experiment.
yeah. I love that you've said that. That's everything resonates with me about inner child, that it's like my positivity and it has that energy. I think that's another amazing topic. But thank you for today, for if we can shine a light on the fatigue and share it from our perspective and just encourage people to view it in a new way, not as a deficit, but as a
Yeah.
transformative quality. So thank you for your time. It's been just so beautiful to connect. And I love being able to hear someone else's visioning and energy and what works for you, and to offer that to the listeners, that in any way it can support them on any level, that we just let this go with love and with light for all of you. So thank you, Bahia, and thank you, listeners. And we will be back on the 10,000 Hours and Counting platform in another time, another space. So thank you so much for now. Namaste, everyone.
Thank you.